and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Bajo.
I'm Junglist.
On the show this week, Riddick is one of the few characters to star in both successful movies and video games. The latest installment in the Chronicles is a game, Assault on Dark Athena. You've probably heard about the government's trial to restrict access to certain internet sites. Ray investigates how it works and what effect it will have on online gaming.
And in Backwards Compatible, we hit the double X buttons and take a look at those women who have taken a lead role in a video game.
But first, can you name this game? Answer at the end of the show. News time, Badger. Financial woes continue for game developer Interplay, who have been rumoured to be working on an MMO set in the Fallout universe. After having sold the Fallout IP to Bethesda Softworks, Interplay retained the rights to make an online game. However, Bethesda claimed certain conditions were not met that could result in a lawsuit against Interplay. This comes at a bad time for the company, as recent reports have shown them ending last year with a zero bank balance and over $2.5 million in debt. Just as legendary NFL commentator John Madden announced his retirement to concentrate on other things, such as EA's gridiron game of the same name, retired NFL players have said they'll be suing both him and EA for not paying royalties for using their likenesses. The group of over 2,000 former players, led by Bernie Parrish, recently won a similar likeness dispute against their union, the NFLPA. Stardock's US release of the game Demigod has been rocky, with retailers breaking the release date, forcing staff to get servers up and running over the Easter holidays. Stardock had estimated that 50,000 players would use the servers once the game had launched, but as many as 120,000 jumped on to play. Stardock representative Brad Wardell says around 18,000 of these are legitimate customers. The rest, gamers who have downloaded pirated copies of the game but are still playing online, putting additional stress on the servers. Stardock are known for their no-CD copy protection policy. Owners of the pirating torrent site The Pirate Bay have been sentenced to 1 year in prison and some hefty fines. The group are famous for their cheekiness with American law, posting correspondence on the front of their webpage and even telling American publishers to wipe their rear ends with their legal documents. If the sentence stands, the group have said they will go through an appeals process of 4 to 5 years, after which they'll go to jail. The world's first playable glimpses of Square Enix's next blockbusting JRPG, Final Fantasy XIII, have been released in Japan in the past week. A playable demo of Final Fantasy XIII was included with the DVD release of the director's cut of the 2005 film Final Fantasy Advent Children, and gave lucky Japanese gamers a chance to become acquainted with two of the game's new protagonists, and engage in a few epic turn-based battles. The Japanese release date for the game is expected to be December 2009, although there is no announced release date for Australia.
Good game!
Flock is a downloadable game for PC, PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade, and the object of the game is simple. Guide as many farm animals as you can into the mother flocker within the time limit.
Mother flugger?
Your mothership.
Nice punnage. Shame about the rest of the game. The only gameplay is guiding and funneling sheep and cows and other animals through obstacles and barriers using your alien beam.
It's a real shame you can't just barbecue the animals with an awesome laser, and after about 5 minutes you really start wanting to do that. The best you can do is suck the life out of them with your tractor beam, or simply push them off the edge.
Animals are annoying in general, and their ability to ignore your laser threats just makes you hate them. You need a steady hand to shepherd them through tiny barriers, and precise movements and speed to get them to land on catapults correctly.
I found that if you were just a touch off with your movements, they just sit there, and if you accidentally knocked a barrier over in the wrong spot, they just couldn't work out how to get past it. Infuriating, where's the fun in that?
Because the view of the game is at 45 degrees, it can be hard to get that angle right. If you've ever had a moment in a game where you have to balance on a ledge or use a pivoting platform to get a ball in a hole, that's kind of what this whole game is like. And to have an entire game based on that just makes everything feel like the worst parts of other games. It's like trying to win a game of pool by pushing the balls with your stick instead of hitting them.
It's an intentionally clumsy experience, and the music is enough to turn anyone into a raging madman. Visually, it's got this nice, soft toy-like feel to it, but the whole way you interact with the game is the opposite of fun. It's anti-fun and deserving of a 4 out of 10 rubber chickens. I'm also a little concerned what happens to the sheep post-abduction, Jung.
I'm not. There's a level editor, and you can unlock objects for this as you go, but we couldn't really find the urge to do this because the game wasn't that much fun in the first place. Bahram you, I'm giving it 4.5 rubber chickens out of 10.
Elite.
Good game.
Call of Duty 4 is an action masterpiece, chock full of great gaming moments, but this week we honor the glorious nuke. First, gamers were treated to a long-range view of the explosion as your chopper spins to the ground. This was a treat in itself, but then we got up close and personal with the aftermath, crawling out of the downed helicopter and stumbling about until finally checking out. It was a fantastic level with no real purpose other than to freak you out and look awesome and be awesome, and it was awesome, and that's why it's this week's great moment in gaming.
Good game.
And now Ray returns with a look at the internet filter trials currently underway.
The Australian government is spending millions of dollars on seeing whether it can build a filter that will restrict our access to the internet.
The Rudd government has an election commitment to the introduction of ISP-level filtering to reduce the exposure of children to illegal content that is identified by ACMA. The government does not believe children using the internet should be exposed to this material.
In 2007, the Howard government spent $84 million on creating the Net Nanny filter and a cyber safety campaign. An underwhelming 35,000 families downloaded the PC-based filter, and it took only half an hour for 16-year-old Tom Wood to crack it. When Labor's Communication Minister, Senator Conroy, began to flesh out the details of the filter earlier this year, he did so via the first ever ministerial blog called the Digital Economy blog. It was open to comment for 2 weeks, an experiment in e-democracy. Within days of the launch of the blog, it was bombarded with hundreds of comments opposing the filter.
This filter is a massive breach of our...
As a computer engineer, I find it unbelievable that this will stop the distribution.
I shouldn't have to be subjected to your filter.
But some people think the government's plan isn't such a bad idea, like Bernadette McMenamin from Childwise Australia.
It's really interesting during this debate because it's like the internet is God, we can't touch it. Anything that should be there must be there. It doesn't matter how horrific those images are. My belief is this shouldn't be about morality, this should be about legal, what's legal and what's not legal, and this should be about protecting children.
GetUp is an internet advocacy group, and they've launched a Save the Net campaign.
Over 98,000 Australians have now jumped on board GetUp's petition against the government's plans to censor the internet. Filtering can block up to 1 in 12 purely legitimate sites that can slow down the internet and have huge costs on Australian households, families and businesses.
So what exactly is the government proposing? Details have been vague, but we do know there will be a 2-tiered system. The first filter would be mandatory for all Australians, blocking out refused classification content. The second level would be an opt-out dynamic content filter that would weed out additional unwanted content. iPrimus are the 4th largest ISP in Australia and the biggest participating in the government's trials.
iPrimus have opted into the trial with the government. The service that we'll be offering is an opt-in, opt-out service to our customers, which means that customers can come along, opt in to be in the trial, and then at any stage during the 6-week period that we're offering it, can choose to opt out at any stage. Some of the issues we expect to encounter with a trial are some of the speed reductions that have been talked about recently, and also about certain sites that customers feel shouldn't be blocked but may be blocked or may be on that blacklist that ACMA provide. Whenever you browse a website, the website that you're browsing is checked against a list of sites that the government has deemed inappropriate. If the website you're browsing to matches one of those on the list, you'll be shown a page that explains that it is on the blacklist and it is prohibited.
Of Australia's 700 ISPs, only half a dozen are taking part in these trials, and they won't include the big 3. Bjorn Landfelt is Associate Professor of IT at Sydney University. He did his PhD in filtering systems and was the technical expert on the previous government's report into ISP filtering technology.
It is incredibly easy to circumvent these filters with virtual private networks and anonymizing proxies and the onion routing, and there's a whole gamut of ways of doing this really easily. The trial is not how easy can you circumvent this. What are the effects when people try to circumvent these filters? How can you stop that? There's nothing of these elements in the trials.
But what us gamers really want to know is what effect it's going to have on us.
During the current filter trial, we won't be filtering peer-to-peer traffic or gaming traffic. What we're looking at here is filtering web traffic, so that is your web browser. It's what the government considers a level 1 filtering.
But it's the second level filter, the voluntary one, that could potentially impact on gamers.
Definitely, some games may be stopped. It is impossible for a filter to be able to tell whether this is a game that is perfectly good for 18-year-olds or 15-year-olds or 17-year-olds or 25-year-olds. There will be some blocking happening of games, I'm sure.
We think that mandatory filtering puts a lot of power in some faceless bureaucrats to make decisions on what we, as Australians, can be accessing online.
I know there's a bit of paranoia that the government will start off here and then it will become like China. Now, why would this government want to create a regime? I mean, it's almost ludicrous to suggest that as an argument. This is a democratic country. It will never happen.
I do believe once a filtering scheme has been put in place, it is very easy to increase the scope. There may very well be other types of applications apart from web browsers. There may be online games, there may be filtering of peer-to-peer traffic for download of anything that is now in peer-to-peer tunnels. We really don't know whether this is going to stop.
So what's your view on this? Should the government be trying to protect us from nasty stuff in this way? Are you actually involved in the trial? If so, what's going on with your nets?
Ray will be back in the next few weeks to take a look at women kicking butt in the video games industry. But for now, let's take a look at women kicking butt in video game land.
Good game.
Women. They've been in games since time immemorial, getting kidnapped by giant apes, monstrous turtle kings, street gangs, and whatever the hell Ganon was. But tonight we're talking about women who smashed the glass ceiling, making the transition from victim to heroine. And it all starts with Ms. Pac-Man. Armed with a pretty red bow and an appetite for pellets to match her husband's, Ms. Pac-Man chomped her way through haunted maze after haunted maze. The game was originally an unauthorized sequel by Midway, but overwhelming popularity led to it being adopted as an official part of the series. And if you look closely, the orange ghost is a lady as well. Moving into the home, classic NES title Metroid was justly beloved for its dark atmosphere and non-linear gameplay. Samus Aran's gender was revealed in a twist ending involving a red bikini, causing thousands of young boys who thought they'd been playing a tough male cyborg to throw down their controllers in disgust. Clearly, they got over it, because there are 9 more games in the massively successful line. The intrepid bounty hunter has done battle with space pirates and Metroids all across the galaxy, as well as stopping by to tear Diddy Kong a new one in the Super Smash Bros. Series. In the mid-'80s, a revolutionary cabinet hit the streets. 4 people could play Atari's hack-and-slasher Gauntlet at the same time, as Warrior, Wizard, Elf, or Valkyrie. Although she was average when it came to speed and strength, Thyra the Valkyrie had the best armor. This meant she'd often survive the endless onslaught of ghosts, demons, and lobbers longer than her companions, as long as the elf didn't shoot the food. Thyra paved the way for Tyrus Flare, the longsword-toting, fire-spouting, dinosaur-riding Amazon with a golden axe to grind against Death Adder. She was so mad at the villainous giant that she forgot to put her armor on over her underwear. These days, she's much more properly attired for combat.
The gods always demand sacrifice.
Sometime in the 90s, Capcom's Street Fighter II exploded into international popularity, chewing up pocket money like E-Honda chews up burgers. While most Road Warriors fell for the macho allure of Ken, Ryu, or Guile, true champions knew it took the most skill to defeat the game with the first playable female character in a fighting game, Chun-Li. The Chinese martial artist was on a mission to avenge her father's death, and she didn't care how many Brazilian beastmen she had to spinning bird kick to do so. Chun-Li wasn't alone in the fight for feminism for long. She paved the way for fellow Street Fighter babes like Cammy, not to mention Mortal Kombat's Sonya, Tekken's Nina, and Virtua Fighter's Sarah. Funny how they're all blondes, though. Possibly the most famous and beloved of all video game vixens, aside from Passionate Patty from Leisure Suit Larry 3, is the Tomb Raider herself, Lara Croft. Making her debut in 1996, Lara was the ultimate thinking man's pinup, with a genius-level IQ, a personal fortune, effortless cool, and Olympic-level athletic ability. She's the Indiana Jones you can have an unashamed crush on. Who would have thought a hard-as-nails, no-nonsense babe with such a massive, expansive, delightful arsenal would appeal to the traditional gamer market? In Lara's wake came a whole host of attractive, empowered women who weren't afraid to kick ass, take names, and inspire fan art in the process.
My name is Joanna Dark.
From Joanna Dark to Jill Valentine to Coco Bandicoot, these self-sufficient ladies had one thing in common: cool names and dark backstories. All right, that's two things. 21st century heroines have continued the feminist tradition started by Ms. Pac-Man back in '81. Cameo used her elemental powers to save her family and spirit buddy. Heavenly Sword's Noriko fought monsters and the sexual prejudices of her people. Faith from Mirror's Edge battled an unjust government with highly advanced gymnastic skills. And the DOA babes played volleyball.
Good game. Good game.
Darkness, for me, is where I shine.
It's been 5 years since the last Chronicles of Riddick game taught us that you can't keep a good Furion down. Now he's back in Assault on Dark Athena, and developers Starbreeze have been cool enough to rework the last game, Escape from Butcher Bay, and include it in the new game for free. Among wolves, he's the bigger wolf, the man who cannot be contained by prison or fate. He is Riddick.
Richard B. Riddick.
Dick Riddick.
The Furion Phallus.
Vin D.
The man with many names has found himself another establishment to rebel against. Set in the events after Butcher Bay, mercenaries turned pirates have captured your ship, and they must have been playing some Quake Jump because they've learnt strogification, the art of turning humans into mindless robotic slaves.
These drones have a limited automatic patrol mode, or the guards can take direct control over them from their base.
All right, I'm switching off the drone. Disconnecting now.
This affects all the sneaking around that you'll be doing as Riddick avoids capture and finds out more about the pirates.
It's easier to hide from the ones with the red light on the face, because the ones with the white light can see you with their flashlights. They can talk too.
Now the monsters have something to fear.
Just like Butcher Bay, you'll be skulking for silent kills, doing minor puzzles, taking control of enemy drones, and wreaking as much havoc as you can. It really is more of the same, and that's not bad. I mean, Butcher Bay was quite revolutionary, but don't expect that. It's really just more of a good thing.
As a Furion, you've still got your permanent night vision, and Riddick can lean around corners now, but the main difference is the Scar Gun, which fires 5 pellets of compressed air, sticks to the target, and you can explode them all at once with the right button.
Overall, there's more gunplay in Dark Athena, and they love playing with your vision, with night vision and flashlights, and there's quite a few of those do they see me or do they not moments as you sneak up for a silent kill. And when you finally sneak into the control room and take control of drones yourself, the effects are simple but great.
It's a hard thing to create a believable world in such a futuristic, far-out setting. Only really top-shelf games like Half-Life and BioShock can pull it off. And part of that is shock value. The horrors that these mercs are committing on civilians and some of the things that the prisoners will do or say are not for the faint-hearted.
You don't want to remember me.
Well, whatever, man. You know what? F you. You just hit the downtown of Sphincter City.
But mostly it's about the detail in the world.
With the camera constantly switching to third-person view and focusing on points of interest, you'll be climbing through more vents than Gordon Freeman and Sam Fisher combined. And odd as it seems, with veritable armies in chase, you are the predator, and thanks to some stylish first-person takedowns, you feel like one too.
Dark Athena is just as linear as Butcher Bay, but it will give you more open spaces with 2 or 3 ways to get to your enemy. And this allows you basically to choose your own playstyle. Do you want to be a sneaky melee mofo? Or do you like to go in guns blazing?
Time to die.
Or a combination of the two?
It's not a hard decision really, because stealth is the strength of the game. With the assault rifle, bullets actually take time to travel to their target, but your target reacts the moment you pull the trigger. This means enemies will be doing a lot of dodging, and whether this is intentional or not, I don't know, but it definitely is enough to send the itchiest of trigger fingers down the stealthy path.
There is a really annoying movement bug where if you're pressing more than one movement key at the same time in turn, it'll send you off in that direction permanently until you press it again. This especially sucks in melee fights where your footwork decides what kind of attack you do, and it's really deadly when you're teetering on ledges. It mainly happens when the PC struggles though, so it seems like if you turn down your anti-aliasing and resolution, it'll mostly fix it.
The good news is, it doesn't really make it that much worse. It makes it a little grainier, but I didn't mind that jump because it's kind of how Riddick's vision is supposed to be anyway.
Well, that's the thing with people that buy high-end PCs, they want to use them.
Otherwise, the game is technically great. It alt-tabs well, and you can switch configs easy. It also runs quite well on older computers. One thing I can't forgive, though, is the copy protection.
That's right, the use of Securom means that you'll only ever get 3 installations of the game. You need an internet connection to validate it, and if the company ever goes bust and there happens to not be a validation server, well, you're screwed.
And you know, Securom can be malicious to your PC. In the past, it's been linked with Windows security issues, and it can be an absolute pain to uninstall. And you know what the irony is, John?
Hit me.
This kind of thing punishes the legitimate users. Undoubtedly, people will download a cracked version of this game, and they won't have to deal with any of this.
Well, given that shooting really isn't a strength of the game, and the movement bug only happens on the PC version, and they went with that stupid copy protection, I'm thinking that you might be better off with the console version of this game.
I don't think I've ever heard you say that.
Well, it's a game worth checking out, but you can't really recommend something that's going to hurt someone's PC, can you?
No, well, you know, it's really 2 games in one, and skills will vary, but there's around 20 hours of gameplay here, depending on your skill level. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, this was one of those for me where once I was playing, I didn't want to stop. Didn't matter if I had to go to the toilet or if I was hungry. Doesn't matter, just deal with the pain, keep on playing. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
You know that's just an excuse so you don't have to have a shower.
That's absurd. In fact, it's ridiculous.
Done.
What?
Good game.
So, good gamers, did you guess the game for this week?
It was Enclave, the first game to be developed by super talented Swedish game makers Starbreeze Studios, who, of course, also made the Riddick game in tonight's show.
It came out on the Xbox and PC around 7 years ago in 2002, so it's fairly new, but you've probably never played it because Enclave was very, very average fantasy action stuff. It looked pretty, but the game design, in particular the combat, totally let it down.
Yeah, Jung, it wasn't that good, was it? And certainly not in the same league as the awesomeness Starbreeze are making today.
Speaking of awesomeness, next week we're back with a look at X-Men Origins Wolverine. And if anyone can break the movie-to-game curse, it's Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman. He's so hot right now.
And one of the most controversial game characters is back. Yes, it's Leisure Suit Larry, and his new game is Box Office Bust.
And that's prompted us to take a look at other controversial games in backwards compatible.
But now, without any controversy at all, it's time for us to go.
Don't forget to send us your random access memory, your favorite gaming moment. The best of them could make it into the Good Game Gamer's Guide to Good Gaming. More details here. Junglist out.
Bajo out.